let's try this again. And welcome to Biz Buzz with Bruno, presented by Mads Theater. My name is Michael Bruno. I'm still your host, and we're still having the wonderfully talented people from Ah We Delicious. Please say hello to our guest today, Anthony Leonard, and the lovely and talented Stacey Garbarski. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, of course. And thank you for breaking all of our equipment and making us start over again, because you've jinxed us forever. Thank you.
I'm wearing a necklace that I thrifted, and I think that might be the problem.
That is what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, no other reason.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll make this one work. So, Anthony, let's start out with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, who do you hope to be?
I think pretty much grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, moved around a lot in Wisconsin, but went to school at Edgewood with Stacey, both majored in theater. And now I do a lot of work in town, so with a lot of theater companies in town. Also started doing improv with Monkey Business Institute as well. So those are my big things that I'm doing right now.
So you're kind of like focusing on improv, because this Are Delicious is kind of based on improv as well, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. Well, and Anthony you've been one of my favorite improv artists since we've been in college. Yeah, it's just, there's my favorite story about Anthony. It's the one where you were sliding on the floor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you tell this one a lot.
I love it so much. Okay, it's a great story. So in the theater department, we had this beautiful new building our sophomore year of college, and we had this tour of non-theater people coming through. So we were getting ready for a show, and we're like, God, where's Anthony? And there's this tour of like these bright-eyed freshmen and non-theater folk and just different people, like a full house that came through the green room. And then Anthony comes on his back, sliding like an inchworm. Like,
I had no place to sleep.
He came out of the dressing room and was like sliding on the ground, and the entire room went silent. It was just, I don't know. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. It was really weird, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I think about that once a week.
I think I was taking a nap under the counter, the makeup counter, like the green room counter. Because I didn't have a dorm or anything. Because
so you were sleeping in theater?
No, I was just you spend the whole day. You go to school and then there's at least an hour to wait for a rehearsal, and so I'm not going to go home in that time. So
So you know how to make an entrance, I'll tell you that.
It was great.
So now, is this your first Are We Delicious?
I did one way back when in school, but this one's my first one since then. Yeah. Tony was running it at the time, and I don't think Stacey was doing that one.
No,
either.
I didn't do the one. Yeah, he brought it to Edgewood College for like the students to do.
So I did like a student run one, which was very different from this one. So it kind of is still my first time.
And now, Stacey, what was your first? How did you first get involved with Are We Delicious?
My first one was Are We Delicious Superstition or Superstitions, I think it was called. And Tony had reached out to me to do it because he came to see Christmas with the Crawfords and really enjoyed my performance and asked me to do a Delicious. Yeah.
And had you done anything like that before? Because I know you've done theater. You did some amazing shows at Edgewood College, and a couple of shows by some guy named Michael Bruno. That we don't have to go into details.
He still owes me $5, or the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. So had you have a lot of improv in your background besides theater?
Yeah, I had an improv and sketch writing troupe when I was in high school called Diet Mountain Dew.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. We were doing a show that was so provocative one time that it was shut down without us knowing about it. So like our performances got canceled. We weren't doing anything bad. We were just kids, but whatever. So I have like an improv and a sketch background. But at that point, that was the first time that I had ever done something like that. And we did a lot of improv in college. Our professor, and now great friend, Jeannie Leap, is an incredible improv artist. Yes, but no. I had never done anything like Delicious at that point.
And then how did you make the transition to now taking over the helm of Are We Delicious? How did that come to be?
Tony is a really good friend and colleague, and the pandemic part of COVID happened. And I had reached out to him and asked, like, hey, you moved away from Madison. Doing Delicious is my favorite thing to do, like one of my favorite types of theater. What's going on? And he said, well, I don't know. I'm kind of sick of it. Does someone else want it?
Wink, wink.
And I was like, methinks I do, I guess. But I didn't want to do it alone. So Gina Gomez is an amazing friend, amazing artist. She's been my ride or die for a lot of different productions. So she agreed to be the co-artistic director with me.
So for people that don't have any idea what it is and what this art form is, explain a little bit to them what happens and what's the process.
Well, I would love to explain it to
Okay,
you.
lovely. Go ahead.
So Are We Delicious was founded in 2012 in Madison by Tony Trout. The idea at that time was everyone writes, everyone acts, and no one can rest until the final curtain. And that's still the tagline that we use at this time. Back in 2012, and for like the earlier productions, you would write a show in 3 days, rehearse it in 3, and put it up on the 7th. So I've done that part of Delicious, like that really short process. That's basically it, right? It's professional actors and writers who are doing everything. Sometimes you have the writers and actors who are also directing certain scenes as well. It kind of depends on what type of show you're doing. Meaning that there are some shows that we do where each scene is a completely different story, or like the show that we're doing now, each actor and writer wrote a scene, but it's all the same story.
And I've noticed a lot of them have themes. Mm-hmm. So does it have to stick to the theme? Do the stories have to be sticking to the theme of the show?
Yeah, it makes it easier for the writing and creative process to have, okay, I know I need to incorporate this element. I have this character I need to write for. And sometimes we say, okay, the scene has to start with this beginning and then get to this ending. How are you going to get from point A to point B? There are some shows that we've done where you bring in a random prop on the first day of writing and somehow then you need to incorporate it. So for the show that we're doing now, as a group, we voted on an outlaw in history. So not just like Western outlaws, but anyone who is literally outside the law or like a battle or something. There have been some Deliciouses where there's nothing picked yet on that writing night, and then you go from there.
And does the audience have any say-so over the outcome of things? Is there any kind of participation with the audience with the show?
Not yet, or with like picking the theme, or
I mean, during the performances. I remember the ones that I've gone to. They draw a circle, and there's kind of like there's a whole shtick that kind of goes with it.
Yes,
and that's still part of the show.
For this show that we're doing, yes, definitely. There have been some shows that are more like a straightforward 2-act play that doesn't necessarily have like breaking the fourth wall or audience participation. So it depends on the type of show. So for this one, Outlaws, it is very cartoony, slapstick, and requires some level of audience participation to have it be enjoyable for us and for them too.
And talk a little bit about My Arts, because that space is
incredible,
quite wonderful. So you had your opening night last night, which I hear went really well.
Yeah.
So what's it like performing in that space?
It just, you feel like a real actor and artist.
Feels taken care of.
Yes.
I think that's a really good way to put it. I think CTM and that whole space, they all do a great job. The staff is amazing.
Absolutely.
And so accommodating to anything we need. Mm-hmm. It's it's luxurious. It's nice to have a green room. It's nice to have like space to have your stuff, and of course just
a fridge.
A fridge. And you think you get that all the time, but you don't. So it's really nice to have that ability to do so.
Well, and coming from, so our first theater in college was in the Regina building, right? Oh,
yes.
So that it was a basement of a dorm. And we had done some amazing productions in that space, but it is wonderful to have a space that's already set up for success instead of having to really be creative every second of the day. It's exhausting to have to go from nothing to create something.
And are there several different performance spaces within the whole entire building, or is there just the one basic theater?
There's two, right?
Are there two?
Yep.
They have the Black Box Theater and the Starlight.
Which is a proscenium.
And are you in the Starlight or are you in the Black Box?
We're in the Black Box, which is perfect for this production too. Yeah.
I really like how they invite community to use the studio spaces though too.
Right.
So a lot of the time you see different groups, musicians of all sorts, dancers, performers, practicing and working their craft.
Yeah, on a given day, we're sharing that building with so many different artists, and it feels very collaborative, and that is what being creative should be.
So now, do you handpick the artists, the directors, or do they have an audition process, or do you just say, I think I want you, and I think I want you?
Well, that's a great question.
Good, let's come up with a great answer.
Well. Let me see what I can do here. So because this is my first time being the impresario, that is a term that Tony would use to describe himself, which if I think about it in the dictionary way, it means like you're the one with the money and like you're like creating it's kind of like a producer. So as Gina and I'm the impresario and we're both co-artistic directors. We were like, okay, so we know we want to have auditions. We want to have people who have never tried this process before come and be a part of our Delicious. But for our first show, let's ask our friends and colleagues who don't have conflicts that we've worked with before, even if they haven't done a Delicious before. So we just happened to ask a group of people. And as is the nature of theater, people can't do it at the last minute. So we had several casting changes up until last week, right? Because one of our actors is sick, and so then Gina's stepping in for this person. We had already written the script at this point, but so we wanted to handpick it just because we were like, we don't know what we're doing, so let's set ourselves up for success and pull our strings. And Gina and I work for Whoopin' Soccer as well, so we use the My Art space, and like how Anthony also works for CTM too. Like you're able to, I don't know. It's just nice to have connections and to figure it out. So that was our plan this time around. We are having auditions September 17th and September 18th this year, which, I mean, the 17th is my birthday and I didn't really want to work, but like I will. It just so happened. So we will be having auditions coming up. And we are planning on doing a show at most likely Edgewood College in October as well. So that's kind of what's going on. It's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of handpicking. It's also like, well, what happens? Let's just see what happens.
Because it's a very particular art form, and there are a lot of actors that are very incredibly good actors. But you ask them to do improv, and they're like,
Precisely. I think what's scariest for folks is the writing process. Oh, yeah. So, right? And I mean, do you want to talk about your experience?
I mean, it is very intimidating to feel like, oh, I've only written a script before in the past, and now I have to write a whole show, maybe, potentially. So I think that's what also makes Delicious so special, too, though, is it gets you out of your comfort zone to try something that you wouldn't normally do or have any experience in. And I think learning a little bit about script writing, I think ultimately also makes you a better actor too.
Absolutely. And going back to the question about handpicking, it's nice to be like, I texted Anthony, do you want to do a Delicious? And you were like, yeah. Okay, sure. And I asked folks like Anthony, who I've known for a long time, I trust. We've done a lot of work together. So many different types of theater. So it's nice to, I do like handpicking a little bit, but I'm excited to see who auditions, because then you can handpick from that. too.
And you never know. And there's always amazing pools of talent that come to Madison. I'm always astonished by, the caliber of talent and the turnover of talent. I mean, there are constantly people coming in. And it's like, wow, where did you come from? I haven't seen you moving. It's like it's really encouraging, especially for Madison.
Well, you don't want to see the same faces on stage every single time. Like, I don't want to be in every single Delicious. That is not my agenda. And it's also really important to Gina and I to uplift voices that aren't white and that aren't entirely men too, right? So that's that part of the audition process is let's see how many different types of voices we can bring in.
And are there other Are We Delicious around the country, or is this unique to Madison?
I think, well, because it's based off of improv, right? So I'm sure that there has to be other companies in the country that do this, but my understanding is Delicious is the only one that is kind of marketed as such. And I could be wrong, but
Yeah, 'cause I think pre-COVID, when Tony was still doing them, he actually had a kit of things that he was actually taking to get other companies to start doing different places. But I don't know if that ever, obviously, came into fruition. But I know that was his goal, was to have different companies in different cities running the program of how to do Are We Delicious.
I'll have to ask him about
Tony, would you call us and let us know the answer to that question?
Tony, are you watching?
Tony, are you watching? So actually, speaking of Tony, he came to see the show last night. What was his reaction?
He said it was, I don't know, I kind of blacked out. What did he say? He thought it was great. He was so happy. He was so proud of us. He said it was like a love letter to him.
Aww.
I know. He really enjoyed it. And we had a great show. Smaller audience, but for that space, it's perfect. And when you have an audience that outnumbers your cast, fine.
Hey, that happens.
It's great, yeah. Yeah, I think we had maybe like 20 folks. I don't know. It was fantastic. It was good.
Plus, you said you had a last-minute substitution, right? Because one of your actors was sick. Mm-hmm. So when did you find out that happened, and how quickly did you have to make the turn on and the adjustment for that?
Oh, immediately.
What was it, Sunday?
Yeah, it was after we had written everything and we were about to put it on its feet. And we got the notification that this person was sick, requiring them to quarantine for X amount of time. And Gina was able to step in. And we were all in the same boat at that point of we're all memorizing the script. So, it's not like we're way ahead of her and then she has to catch up to us.
And do you, obviously, I mean, you said there's improv, but there's also there's a script you have to sort of follow to get through the thing. But I'm sure there's a lot of room for improvisation. It's not like the author of the piece, if you're writing your first play, like, I did not write that way. That was not the line that I wrote.
Yeah, the character that I'm playing is a narrator, which works great because I have a pre-show speech as me, as Stacy, as the impresario of Are We Delicious, and then I get to be a different version of myself. It's, narrator self. But being a narrator means you have monologues, and they were really kicking my ass. I was having such a hard time. At one point, one of our actors was like, stop, you're saying the line wrong. I wrote the script. You need to say the line correctly. So I really didn't know my lines until last night. That's the nature of the show, right?
But that kind of fits in. I mean, that's kind of the luxury of doing improv. It's like, so you can break the fourth wall, and somebody can say, hey, excuse me, wait a minute. What are you doing here?
That was during rehearsal, but yes, I would say I didn't miss a beat last night. I was on it.
I wasn't keeping track.
I don't care what you do. You're fine. So I played the narrator, and it works great too. Do you want to hear about the story, or
sure,
of course. Is that one of your questions?
Yeah, of course.
You also didn't ask me where I was from or my background.
That comes in part 2.
You know what? I'm joking. Obviously. So the story is, it's about the Great Emu War of 1932, which
I remember that.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I have past lives.
You were born in 56.
55.
Oh, my
Please, I'm old now. I'm very old. And the day after your birthday, by the way.
That's
September
right.
18th.
Virgos.
But we digress.
Anyway.
So tell me about the Great Emu Wars of 1932, Ms. Garbarski.
Well, it was 1932, you see. So it took place in Western Australia. I'm not doing my monologue. I can't do that.
No.
No, don't do
No,
it.
don't give it away. People have to come and see it.
So there were farmland was being destroyed. And these farmers particularly were wheat farmers. So there was thousands of emus that came through destroying everything. And the Australian government was trying to do essentially like a mass euthanasia, kind of like what the city of Madison does to the geese in the area. I hate it. So they were like, okay, we have to kill these fucking emus. Easy, we're going to do it. They couldn't do it. They could not get it done. So the emus had the strategy of like, being really calm and collected, and then they would scatter. So then the military is shooting their guns all over the place and not killing anything, or killing like a really small amount of the emus. And they just couldn't do it. They couldn't win. So the humans, the Australian government lost against thousands of emus. That's what happened.
Fascinating.
Do you remember?
I remember.
You remember now?
I do. I vaguely remember that. Yes.
So that's our story. And we took that, and of course you have to take the characters that were part of this piece of history and then take characters that didn't actually exist. So Anthony's character is the head emu, the emu leader, with a pretty good Australian accent.
Oh, good. It sounds good. That's
Nice.
good.
I don't know. I wasn't keeping track.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice. Sweet. No, it's a great accent. So, and then we also have characters on the Australian military side that did exist during this actual event. It's ridiculous, and it's really easy to make into a cartoony, what the fuck is happening type of thing. And that's where a narrator is important to come in and put the pieces together. It's just I'm used to make up for what we lacked in the writing process. And that's okay.
So now, does everybody that participates, do they have to do all the things? They have to write, they have to act, they have to direct, or can they just kind of like maybe do one or two of the things?
So for this particular production, everyone writes, everyone acts, except we have a director. Dave Pausch directed us, which he's an amazing director. So we were very, very lucky to have him. There have been some delicia where you have the writers and actors also directing as well. So yes, but not for this show.
And now, so how many deliciouses do you project having in the next the next year?
More than two.
Do you have your next one already set? Maybe.
I sent an email this morning from my bathtub about dates for the next show. So just confirming with the venue. So we're hoping to have a show in October, hopefully at the Diane Ballweg Theater at Edgewood College. And we also have a goal too of doing shows that maybe aren't a delicious with this company, if that makes sense. So like Gina is an incredible playwright, putting on one of her shows.
And so in following through with that, for this particular show, for Outlaws, is it family friendly, or is it PG? Is it R-rated? Who would you say
Depends on the family.
your target is for this show?
I think, yeah, you answer it.
What? There's lots of suggestive language. There's no swearing necessarily that I can remember, but there's a lot of suggestive language with that, and so PG-13-ish.
Yeah.
But in that vein, do you or have you ever done or will you do outreach for kids to do this?
That's a really good question. It's something that Gina and I have talked about. The thing is, there are already wonderful companies for children's theater in the area, and I'm not necessarily looking to like compete, and I just don't know if I would be able to add anything of value to children's theater at this moment in time.
But are there improv for children? I don't think there's improv for children that I know of. CTM certainly doesn't do improv.
I mean,
and
I know
Whoopin'
a lot
Soccer is adults doing it for children.
Right.
So I don't know of any even teenage era, maybe preteen to to 18 that's teaching them how to do improv or teach them how to do that kind of skill.
Right. I mean, do you know of anything?
Well, I know like a lot of the companies, like I know Monkey Business definitely teach classes and like workshops too. And I know they also partner with CTM, especially during the summer. With like, I think Summer Stage, where they do specialized classes, like whether it be like an improv unit or, you know, pratfalls or something like that. Or so, I mean, there's definitely room, I would think, for them
I mean, not that
to
I'm
do.
encouraging. I was just, in my thoughts, I was thinking back in the day when I was with the Stagecoach Players back in the late 60s, most of the stuff that we taught, you know, was improvising through fairy tales and making it up and changing it as we went along.
Definitely.
And, you know, the kids loved that. It really was a training ground.
Well, and kids are already brilliant at improv, right?
Yeah, because they have no filters. So, yeah, so
Some things never change
well, that's true.
for probably all three of us at this table. Yeah, I definitely, it's a conversation worth having. And right now, I mean, we're still at the beginning of everything.
Right.
It's, even thinking ahead to October, I was like vibrating with anxiety last night, right? Like it's, I didn't know how many problems actors have now that I'm looking at it from a different lens. Oh my God. So yes, I will put that in my mind, but also like, I'm just trying to make it to like the end of the day.
Fair enough.
But I'll text Gina when we're done.
Perfect.
I think that there's a lot of use for anything that's similar to Delicious for artists. And I can speak for myself personally. What I love about Delicious and what I've always loved is that it does get me out of my head, because I take myself really seriously as an actor, and that's great. But am I torturing myself in that of like, this has to be the best performance of my life?
Right.
You can't live like that as an artist. It's not worth it. Yeah.
So, Are We Delicious Outlaws? What are the details? What shows do you have left now?
We have Saturday tonight, and then next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
You got it. All the shows are at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Tickets are $15. There's an Eventbrite page. You can also pay at the door. I got a Square reader, so you can tap or insert. You can also pay cash. You can write a check if you really want to, to Delicious Creative Inc. That's the official name. So it'll be at the My Art Space. We opened the doors half hour before. We held for a little bit longer last night too, because we all were just trying to get
Well,
our
you're
shit
also wearing
together.
like 3 hats. You're like,
I have so many hats. I have too many hats.
Trying to check people in. And,
Yeah, and that was a little bizarre. Like breaking the fourth wall at all times. Like
Right.
I'm never really backstage. So
Not that you ever do that during performances, and I've never seen you break the fourth wall in a performance in my entire life. So, in a nutshell, Are We Delicious Outlaws, the My Arts Theater Space. What's the street on the East Washington and
is it Ingersoll?
Ingersoll, Brearley, Baldwin,
I think it's Ingersoll.
Bedlam,
Yeah.
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. Look it up. Use your GPS.
It's by Festival Foods.
There you
it's
go.
by Jackknife. It's by, you can see the Capitol from there. Beautiful views of the Capitol. There's parking on the street. And also there's a garage, so it's pretty accessible too. You go up to the 4th floor because that's where the theaters are at. So there's also wonderful folks to greet you when you enter into the building. I love the space. It's so good.
Beautiful
Good.
space.
It's amazing.
Well, do yourself a favor. Go and see the show. I'm sure you will laugh yourself silly. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Stacy, for coming and joining
Thanks
us
for
on
having
this
us.
lovely
Thanks for
Saturday.
having us.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Showbiz Buzz with Bruno.
Cuckoo, could you?